So SK is our speaker this evening. They're a non-binary content creator. They are a published author and an educator. And what they really aim to do is to uplift and educate the LGBTQIA+ community in online spaces. And I could probably venture a guess that it's not just in online spaces, but just everywhere they go. Through their education efforts online, specifically on Instagram with the Instagram handle at just say SK. It has an impressive almost for 40,000 followers. And so she's really faced a lot of pushback or hateful comments or things that was confronted with things from those who don't really understand the deep need for having more non-binary advocacy as well as education. And so what I really like about what SK does is that the way they really turn their own as lived experience into something to educate others, regardless of what people that they're faced with, whatever their belief system is, their political stance, the way that SK handles things is always with respect. It's with a refreshing approach, but it's also something that's unique and truthful and resonates as such. They are the proud author of a self-published book that's called Erasure, Poems for the Queer Community. And so they're going to be talking about this evening, where they've really chosen to take a collection of hateful comments and turn them into reclaimed poetry that really serves as mini love letters to anyone in the queer community who's faced hatred and misunderstanding. And so SK, without further ado, please tell us everything about the fantastic work that you do. We're so glad that you're here.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. I was just talking with Isabel before this about how it's kind of a strange thing for me to be face to face with other people, because when you're advocating and educating online, it's often just you looking at people and then seeing comments, but not talking and conversing live like this. So this is a really nice opportunity. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about how I got to where I am and kind of my background, because I think it really informs what I do. So I grew up not knowing that I was non-binary. I had never heard the word until I was in my early 20s. And it was definitely something I didn't know was an option for me. So I knew I was gay or queer pretty early on in my sexuality. But it took me until my early 20s, like I said, to find the gender nonconforming, gender diverse community. So growing up, I had a father who was a conservative state delegate. So that definitely informed my home life and how I kind of had to navigate coming to terms with my own identity when I was hearing things in my home and seeing legislation unfold like at my kitchen table that went against who I am. So that kind of delayed my identity forming and who I am as a person and discovering those things. But I think it also really leans into why I educate the way that I do. And I so often see people educating, but not reaching communities who disagree with them because of the way that they're offering advice or material is not necessarily coming from a place where we can honor ignorance. There's a big difference for me between ignorance and hate. And ignorance is something we're all born into. And only through our life experiences and our ability to learn about things and our exposure to things are we able to break through ignorance. So all of my education comes from the lens of giving people space for still learning and still like not knowing things about the community until they know them. So that's again kind of where all of that respect and allowing people room to mess up sometimes to get to the point where they understand and they truly can engage with the community. That's where I get all of that from. But yeah, so like I said, had not known about the non-binary community or even the trans community whatsoever until after college. And I remember I had a friend of a friend, and I heard they were getting top surgery. And I had never heard about that before, didn't know what that was. And they, at the time, I didn't know how they identified, and now they identify as non-binary. But at the time, they identified as a trans male, trans man. And I watched very closely their journey. I watched as they went through top surgery, and I knew that it was something that I wanted, but I knew I didn't identify as a man, and I knew that I didn't want to be on testosterone and all of the things that I thought must go with top surgery. So I pushed it to the side and I didn't think about it because I thought it wasn't something I could access because that wasn't part of my identity. And through some self-research and online community deep diving, I realized the representation for folks who are non-binary or gender non-conforming, not trans man identifying, was very low, and it wasn't represented almost at all online. And I knew that that's who I was, and I wanted to pursue top surgery, which is what led me to share about it online. So my platform started by me just wanting to be the representation I couldn't find to prepare for top surgery. I would watch YouTube videos of people doing their pre-op appointments and their post-op care with their partners or their family, just to feel a little more prepared, but they were all trans men. So they would discuss their testosterone shots and how long they would have to wait before they could take them again, and all these things that just didn't apply to me. So I thought, I'm just going to make my own series on YouTube and share it as the feminine, non-binary person that I am. And hopefully like one person will see it and feel affirmed or feel less like they're going into surgery blind like I felt. And that's when people started coming to my Instagram. And it really truly began as a place that I facilitated conversations for other people, because I couldn't find these places online where feminine non-binary people were getting surgery. So I knew other people couldn't find it, and they came to my page. So they were conversing under my videos, and I didn't want to stop them from doing that. But it was a really strange thing for me at first, because I didn't know who they were. And before that, my social media was all very private, and I wasn't even certain I was going to share about my top surgery journey. But once those conversations started and the numbers grew, I knew that I could either kind of stop that and not educate and not continue to share my journey, or I could lean into it. And I leaned into it. So it's been 2 years, and I have 40,000 people who have come over and decided to engage with my content and ask questions and learn and grow. A large majority of them are parents or family members of queer youth or just queer people in general. And then many are also queer themselves. So it's been a really beautiful way to build a community that I couldn't find before. And then it kind of fell in my lap, which was a really amazing thing. And now I'm taking the time to foster it and build it and really reach people, which has been just so overwhelmingly beautiful. But through that, there's been a lot of hate and a lot of misunderstanding. And it's not something I'm unfamiliar with, but in the volume that it was at the time, maybe about a couple months out of top surgery is when it started really hitting my page. It was very overwhelming, and I didn't know or feel equipped to answer a lot of the questions that were being asked and the things I was being almost accused of. It was very overwhelming. So I would delete and I would delete and I would delete and block people. My block list was so long, but it just never stopped. So I decided, instead of deleting these whole comments, what if I took the comments and I just deleted the words that were hurtful? And I found a way to reframe the comments themselves in the hateful words that were said to me and find beauty in it. And it was very therapeutic for me. And I did it for myself for a long time without telling anyone or sharing it with anyone. And once I had a big collection of them, I started to share them, and people really resonated with it. So I started to allow my followers the opportunity to do it as well. So instead of transforming the hate comment myself, I would post it and offer an option for people to transform it. And then I would get hundreds of responses from the very same comment, all very different but beautiful. And I started sharing those, which has been even more therapeutic and widespread. So it's truly an act of like community care, which started as something that just helped me deal with the hate. And it ended up being a book. So I ended up publishing it by myself. I just thought I have all of these, and why not put it all in one place where people can gift it to a loved one or read it themselves and hold it. It's tangible. And yeah, it's gone over really well. So I would like to share just a couple of those with you so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen Erasure poetry before, other authors have done this. This isn't something I invented or anything like that. It's just something that I took on in my own way. So let me share two with you. And then, yeah, I'll open up to some questions. So here's one. I'm going to read the full hate comment, which sometimes is hard to hear, so just know that. But I think it's more impactful if you hear the original comment in its entirety before you hear the poem. So this person said, "How do you wake up every day and deny your womanhood? Do you think that it's clever to call your femininity something different? It's so confusing to the rest of us to be so feminine and call it non-binary. Be real. You'll never be free from who you actually are, and non-binary doesn't exist. You're full of BS. Call yourself what you are, and maybe you'll find joy." And I made it a poem that says, "How clever it is to be so free and so full of joy," which is one of my favorites. And then I'll just read one more. This one says, "I hope you know there is no way you will be happy with this decision in a few years. You fairy magic snowflakes are getting in the way of everyone else in the world who understands actual biology. It's sad that you've clearly been misled or brainwashed. Prayers to you for when you've healed and realized your ungodly mistake." And the poem is, "There is magic in the way that you've healed." So that's just two from my book. There's over 50 in the book. And all of these are ones that I did myself, not the ones my followers have shared. Those are just for online for them to enjoy. I wanted the book to be all my own work. But yeah, that's basically who I am, where I came from, and what I'm doing now. And I'm very open to questions. I'm an open book, and I feel like everyone should have the opportunity to really ask what they want. So feel free to do so.